Hi guys, this lecture is going to be about the introduction to ancient Greece, also known as classical Greece. Make sure that you fill in all of the notes in your handout, and if you have any questions, write them down so we can go over them tomorrow. Remember, there is going to be a quiz at the beginning of class. First, let's talk about the geography of ancient Greece. Remember that geography is part of our grapes, and we look at how geography affects civilizations and how they develop. Greece is a mountainous peninsula. If you recall that word peninsula from your geography class, a peninsula is a stretch of land that is attached to a larger piece of land, kind of like Florida, and it's surrounded by water on three sides. Right? And this is very important to the development of Greece because it means that Greece is going to be made up of very isolated communities. If you look at a map of Greece, you'll also notice that there are numerous islands. It's an archipelago of islands. And so the development of the communities means that they're going to be not spending too much time together, and they're going to develop very uniquely. This is a map of the Greece civilization, and if you notice, this area here is Asia Minor, so that you know what's on this side of the world. Alright, and there's going to be some conflicts that we're going to talk about in the next couple of days that originate with the people of Asia Minor. They're called the Persians. We'll talk about them again soon. And also, there is a group of people that are going to come in from the north and take over Greece. We'll talk about them soon too. For the most part, what we're looking at is a lot of what's happening here in this area. Athens and Sparta we'll go over tomorrow, so make sure you know where they are, and that's where most of the activity we're going to be discussing is taking place. Okay. Mycenae is the first Greek civilization we're going to study. They arise around 1600 BCE, and they fall by 1100 BCE. And this civilization is made up of powerful monarchies. So here's another one of those vocabulary words. A monarchy is a ruling family. They have a king or a queen, and they get their power because they were born into it. The Mycenaeans are also warrior people, and they trade with a lot of civilizations throughout the Mediterranean Sea. Eventually, the Mycenaeans are wiped out by war and also by natural disasters like earthquakes. When the Mycenaeans civilization falls, we enter a period known as the Dark Age. Okay? When a civilization enters a dark age, that means that they lose a lot of their culture. People aren't being educated. They revert to this idea that they always need to worry about how to survive. And so there's not a lot of innovation coming out of this time period. There's not a lot of literacy. And from 1100 to 750 BCE, the Greeks are experiencing a dark age. A lot of the Greeks are going to sail to various islands, trying to find food, trying to find a better way of life. They also settle in Asia Minor. Eventually, they begin to revive some of the agriculture and the economy, and iron also replaces the tools that they use, the material that they use for tools and weapons. And eventually they're also going to adopt a Greek alphabet that was easy to use and understand, which is what you see in this box over here. And it's very similar to a lot of the letters that we use today, because remember, the Phoenicians developed the alphabet that we use today, right? So it's derived from the same place. Okay. All right, so at the end of the Dark Age, we begin to see a revival of literature as well. And Homer is a very famous poet that came out of the Dark Ages in Greece, and he wrote what is known as an epic poem. An epic is a long poem that tells the stories of a great hero, and the Iliad and the Odyssey are his most famous works. The center of Greek city life is known as the polis. That is the Greek city-state. And that word city-state we saw in the last unit. that means that it is a city or a town that is surrounded by countryside, and all of that area is controlled by one central government. In the polis, you also see an acropolis, and the acropolis is a fortified gathering place that's usually at the top of a hill, and sometimes it serves as a temple and or a public building of sorts. The agora also is found in the Greek city-state, and that is an open marketplace where people gather. I'll show you a diagram of what the agora looks like. So you see there are shops at the agora. People have their little booths, and it's a big marketplace. At the top of this hill, you can see that the Acropolis is up there. There's also a temple for them to worship their gods, and the homes that the Greeks live in are also around the agora. Okay. Let's talk about the rights of the citizens that live in ancient Greece. During this time period, only adult men who were considered citizens had political rights. They're the only ones who could participate in government. The citizens that did not have any political rights were women and children. And then there were a group of people living in the Greek islands that were non-citizens, and that includes agricultural laborers, slaves, and resident aliens. So there were people from other places who had permission to live in Greece, but they did not exercise any political power. The military in the Greek city-states was quite advanced for its time. Hoplites was the name of the soldiers, the foot soldiers that were used by ancient Greeks. They had heavy armor, and they had a round shield and a short sword and a very long spear. And one of the tactics that they used in war was the phalanx. They made a wall of shields. If you notice from the diagram here, all of the area around the soldiers is surrounded by shields, so they're completely protected, and they march in a rectangular formation, and they were quite effective in war by using these tactics. And then finally, the city-states experience a period of tyranny. Little by little, the tyrants were these rich, powerful people who buy off the military and also gain support from citizens, and they take their power from the rich aristocrats that were controlling all of Greece. And so they eventually fall out of favor with the Greek citizens, and it leaves a bad taste in their mouth. So they're going to develop a different type of government. In some city-states you'll see democracy, in others you'll see an oligarchy. Either case, citizens have more of a say in this type of government than they did when tyrants were in power. In democracy, which we'll discuss in more detail tomorrow, it's the rule of many. So everybody, all the citizens, participate in making the rules for the city-state in a democracy. In an oligarchy, people elect leaders, and it's usually a couple, 2 or 3 leaders, and that is called the rule of the few. So they're still elected, but they're the ones who pretty much make all of the decisions. It's not necessarily everybody in the community. We'll discuss those in more detail tomorrow when we talk about Sparta and Athens. So make sure to go back through the video if you missed any information, and write down your questions and get ready for the quiz. All right, thanks for watching.